Welcome! This is my regular update of the status of Solar Cycle 25, and so far it's been full of surprises, and I think it's going to continue to be so. As of October of last year, the last valid measurement of the solar cycle using the smooth sunspot number, it was still rising. So we have not necessarily defined where maximum is as yet. However, some of the activity indicators that we have available as of April of this year show they're beginning to turn down, so we may be at or just past solar maximum. Of course, assuming that the sun doesn't surprise us with another peak of activity. Quick summary of what we're going to cover. As I said, Solar Cycle 25 just posted a new monthly high in smooth sunspot number. That's the parameter that is used to determine the date and timing of both maximum and minimum. The new record is 161. As of October 2024, as it's a 13-month smoothing, then the most recent data is 6 months ago. It increased over September by 1.5, but September increased over August by 2.5, so maybe even the increases are slowing down. Well, let's take a look. Here is a plot of the smooth sunspot number taken from the SIDC in Belgium, and the peak now is 161. So it's going to be at least that number, and it may ease a little bit higher in the coming months. We're now nearly 5 years into the cycle, so how does this compare with normal rise times of solar cycle? The shortest solar cycle rise time was 3.2 years, and so we're well past that, and the longest rise time is 6.8 years. And so we're sort of in the middle of that range. How does this compare with the average? The average is about 4.4 years. So it's a bit longer than normal, but not necessarily very much so. It may go on for another couple of months rising, in which case we'll be nearer the 5-year mark rather than the average. Some years ago, 2020, I made a prediction of what I thought the solar cycle would be like. You can see the X here marks on this scale where solar cycle 24 is. The light blue is the maximum probability as far as I was concerned, and that was something like about 150 plus or minus 25, and sometime during 2024 was the maximum was going to be. So where are we? The red dot shows where solar cycle 25 is currently, still within the range of my maximum probability. However, after I started to see the rise of this cycle, I upped my estimate slightly, and the yellow dot here is what my final estimate was. That's 165 towards the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025. And as you can see, the current cycle is well within that error bar, and it's looking very good. One thing that makes me think we're beginning to ease down towards the decay phase of this cycle is that the fact that there are more sunspots. The sunspot number has been going up. However, the sunspots themselves are smaller. This is a plot of the area of sunspots on the sun at any given time, marked in millionths of the total surface area of the sun. And you can see it reached a peak around about 8 months ago and is starting to ease down. Now that may be because the most recent data is quite low. If we get another peak, that might come back up again. But nonetheless, it seems to be at least leveling off. So I'm thinking we're pretty close to maximum, if not slightly past it. We can try to predict when solar minimum will be by tracing the rate at which the sunspots are heading towards the equator. They start at high latitude and ease towards the equator throughout the cycle, reaching the equator at about solar minimum. And this is a plot of the average latitude per month of sunspots. And you can see I've made a linear fit to this data. And there's a little equation for each of the hemispheres here. The north is the black line at the top, and the south is the red line at the bottom. And pleasingly, they are very, very similar. So if you look at this and solve for x, which is the date of minimum, comes in at 131.6 months after the beginning of the cycle, which was January of 2020. And in the southern hemisphere, it comes out at 130.4 months. That is actually very pleasing because the numbers are so similar. They're only basically different by about a month. So if we take the average of those two, we should say solar minimum should start at about December of 2030. So that would make it almost exactly an 11-year cycle. Other activity indicators may be leveling off. We've nearly reached 9,000 C flares for this cycle so far. That's 90% above the equivalent stage of solar cycle 24. There may be a slight hint that the rate is decreasing. You can see that the slope of the curve is slightly under the projection. Similarly for M flares, there's lower statistics here. We're only at about 1600 so far this cycle, but that is 356% above solar cycle 24 at the same stage. So this is a massive cycle compared with solar cycle 24. X-rays certainly seem to be leveling off, but again, they are way above where we were for solar cycle 24 at the same stage, 260%. So the sun has been much more active this cycle, but we're beginning to see the first signs of these indicators leveling off. Similarly for coronal mass ejections, now they're slightly different from flares, but we've nearly had 7,500 of them, and the last month was quite low, but I think the coronagraph was off for some portion of that. That may be a faulty reading. However, it's still 17% above solar cycle 24 at the same stage. So what conclusions can we draw from all this? Solar cycle 25 will peak no earlier than October of 2024 and maybe a couple of months later. The maximum sunspot number will be at least 161. My projection is 165. We'll see how that pans out. It looks like we're very near solar maximum, if not slightly past it. The minimum will possibly be in December of 2030, plus or minus a month or so. Solar cycle 25 activity levels have vastly exceeded solar cycle 24. Solar cycle 25 is about an average cycle and is about an average length, 11 years. Solar cycle 26 is likely to be as active, if not much more so. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you want to keep abreast of what's going on a daily basis, you can check out my channel on X, which has the same username as I have for YouTube. If there's anybody you think might benefit from understanding a little bit more about how the sun works, you are welcome to forward links to this, and I encourage you to do so. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.